This video is sponsored by Full Moon Features. If you or someone you know loves horror collectibles, be sure to check out Full Moon's Tiny Terrors, the perfect gift this holiday season. For more information, click the link below, or stick around till the end of this video.
Ho, ho, ho.
Here already, guys, we are here with Alex here from Screambox. Alex, thank you for joining us. I mean, this is seriously one of the biggest, I guess, moments for us as coming up in the horror space. You know, we started this podcast about a year ago, and I really got to just start things off here by crediting you, man. You kind of got us our first big break here when we reached out about the Outwaters. I reached out to Robbie on Twitter, and he just so happened to respond, and then he hooked me up with you. And yeah, I mean, seriously, I don't think the channel would be where it's at right now without your influence, sir, because you took the chance on us. You got us hooked up with Screambox, and we love you guys over there. We're always ready and excited every second of the month. We're always waiting for that email. And yeah, man, this is awesome to have you on the show. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the kind words. I mean, the pleasure's all mine. It's what the horror community is all about. Like, we're not, I don't know. We try to be with Screambox and beyond. Everyone, whether you have one listener or a million listeners, someone's still out there listening, paying attention, and we want to spread the love. So we appreciate your support, your ongoing support.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I think what you guys are doing over there is just wonderful. I mean, again, Luke and I, we kind of approached this show when we first started as just talking about all the classic films that we really loved, and obviously like newer classics in our minds too. Like one we're talking about here, I think by the time this is out, we've already talked about Krampus and things like that. So all across the board, but we didn't think figured it'd be years before we could really start diving into these kind of like recent indies, if maybe there was one here or there. But just the fact that you have a company like Screambox that you do the publicity for and everything, and you actually go out and shake the hands and meet people, which is great. And the fact that you guys are so dedicated to bringing these smaller pictures to the horror audience in such an accessible way. I mean, it's amazing. And I mean, I gotta say, like, I didn't know much about the service until probably about the time we met you. So it's one of those things where it's like, is it crazy to see how much it's taken off within the last year? And I mean, I know it's been around for about 2 years, but coming up on 2 years, but like, isn't it crazy that it's like, it's how far it's come?
Yeah. Oh, it's insane. Well, that's the other thing. When you came up to me about covering the Outwaters, like, we were still in our infancy too. We were still growing and kind of finding our footing. So it's a two-way street. We appreciate anyone who helps spread the word. But yeah, I mean, it's been crazy. The Outwaters was obviously a big break for us. Terrifier 2 put us on a whole other level. Now we have Terrifier 3 coming out next year, which we hope to just keep building and building and building until we're, a household name, and we can keep doing cool stuff, keep putting out cool stuff, keep getting good horror movies in front of people who otherwise they maybe wouldn't find them.
Absolutely, man. And I think that's exactly what the service is doing. I think that it again opens the door for smaller creators and bigger creators to just be able to kind of show off their work. And again, of course, you guys have this crazy backlog of just these wonderful, like, hidden gems that, people probably don't know about as well. And I think that it's just in kind of the wake of the big news today has been the fact that Paramount and Warner Brothers are apparently going to be merging, and people are kind of discussing what that might entail. And with all these big studios, it seems like the big box office draw has been kind of floundering a lot recently. And the fact that smaller films like Terrifier 2 have been able to kind of bust through the seams, it seems like you guys just really struck while the iron was hot and got that out there. And it just seems like it's been taken off. Because I mean, from my perspective, just talking to people who aren't the biggest horror fans, and I think Luke can attest to this too, we've recommended your service and the service of Screambox to many people, and they always come back. At least one big one is my father, just being like, I love the documentaries. I can't believe like there's so many horror docs and things like that. And if you know us, that's one of the big things that we always take from you guys is whenever you guys have a horror doc, we love to cover it. And I think that's just great. And Luke, I'm hogging up all the airtime. You go ahead and hit him with a question there for me.
Oh, no, I just wanted to kind of second your the positivity of Screambox, because growing up, I was in the time of you go to the video store and you're going to pick out a VHS, and I always gravitated, even as a kid, to the horror section, just to look at the covers of everything. And in that you would find those hidden gems, things that went overlooked for me, even as I got older. And then I would have to go back. Things like The Burning and Sleepaway Camp were things that I eventually found, but I even remember those covers walking through the video store. And now it's one of those things where, you would get a VHS on a Friday night and you'd have it over the weekend. You'd be so excited to sit down and, be able to have that time to watch it. But now I find myself being excited to turn on Screambox. We just, covered Santastein, where it's a smaller film. It's, a DIY. I always use the term punk rock, where it's like such a do-it-yourself, get that vehicle out there. And I think, there are so many smaller properties that I found on Screambox, and it just kind of opens up this wide range of different ways you can intertwine horror. And I think that's such a beautiful thing, because you see how versatile horror can be. And I think Screambox is, right at the forefront. They're really spearheading getting that different voice of the horror genre out to the horror community and beyond.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I and everyone behind the scenes at Screenbox, like you, grew up in the video store generation. We very much try to replicate that with, the shelves we have on our homepage are kind of modeled after, like recommendations and by genre and subgenre. And then I also run the Screenbox socials, so I get to kind of be the video store clerk, where I can if we have a new subscriber and they're like, I don't know what to watch, I'll ask them for, their favorite movies or favorite subgenres, and then I'll give them personalized recommendations based on, whatever they like. It's just, it's fun, like it's, you miss that without having, there's no more video stores around. So without that culture, it's all online, but you can still kind of get that, I don't know, that energy, the spirit of it across with a service like Screenbox.
Yeah, and I gotta agree with that too. I mean, I think that that's probably one of the bigger takeaways that I get from it, is that it seems like the service, and just what you do on the social media there, because I was always curious if that was like a team or if that was you solo, and it's just one of those things when I found out that you're the one that kind of runs that. It's like it feels very personal, and it's always great to see that kind of interaction, because you don't get that with a lot of the bigger streaming services, especially like Netflix and stuff. There's never going to be, or very rarely there's going to be, somebody from them who pops into the comments and will give them a personalized kind of list, or at least just jump into the conversation, because I think that that's such a rare thing. And I hope that that can keep going as long as Screenbox keeps growing, because obviously the service is doing well, and we're huge supporters of it. We're going to keep pushing it. But I think that that's one of the things that, looking into kind of your background, you've kind of become this social media wizard in a sense. Like you've dipped your hands in a lot of different things over the years. And so could you kind of tell us a little bit about where that all started for you, and just kind of how did things like working for Bloody Disgusting come along, and then starting Broke Horror Fan, and I'll just name drop all the fun stuff that you've gotten your hands in, and you can just tell us, our viewers, the story, because it is quite fascinating.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'll try to make it fast. But yeah, it was Freddy versus Jason is the movie that made me a horror fan. I was like 14 when that came out, and it was just like everything about the sensibilities. I hadn't seen any of the movies yet. I knew of Freddy and Jason pop culturally. And funny story I always tell, I thought I could get away with just seeing the first Friday the 13th and first Elm Street before Freddy versus Jason. I was like, I don't have the time for 17 movies. Like, I'll get the gist of it. And needless to say, I was very surprised when Jason wasn't in Friday the 13th, or in it for one scene. But
yeah,
but yeah, I eventually saw all of them, and Freddy vs. Jason, loved them all. From there, went to Halloween, which is my favorite movie, went through all those, and just kind of dove in from there, getting more and more obscure and weirder and deeper as I went. And just got super passionate about it, just kind of found like a calling in it, something comforting about it. And started writing for, like, first on message boards and then like blogs and stuff like that. in the early 2000s when I was a teenager. Wrote for a bunch of different sites. Some of the bigger ones, Dread Central, Arrow in the Head, iHorror, stuff like that. And it was cool, knowing that I was reaching an audience, but there was, little to no pay. And it was like, not to disparage any of those sites. They're all, it's hard to run and make money on the internet. But I figured, like, if I'm doing this for little to no money, like, I might as well do it by my own accord and kind of how I want, do what I want, be my own boss, that kind of thing. But I really wanted to find a niche, and I really wanted to get out of like the news cycle. It's so, I don't know, tiring, basically. Like, especially at that time where there was like, I don't know, 5 or 6 big horror sites that were basically all the same in terms of what news was posted there. Some sites would get it sooner than others, but if you checked all the sites at the end of the day, it'd be basically all the same news stories. And I just, not to say I didn't care about that. I'm a horror fan. I kept up with that news, but I had no interest in like reporting on it for the 5th time or whatever, rewording a press release kind of thing. So I'm a big horror collector, physical media as well as like memorabilia. So I started Broke Horror Fan. First started as a Twitter page, just like shouting out like, oh, Fright Rags dropped these cool shirts, buy them here. And then quickly transitioned that into a blog of sorts, which I still maintain to this day. BrokeHorrorFan.com for anyone who's not familiar. It's basically, still what I was doing on Twitter. It's very short form. It'll be, images of whatever products, everything from, Blu-rays and 4Ks, records, posters, prints, toys, whatever, anything collectible that has a horror movie character on it. I'll post about. And it's like no editorializing most of the time. It's usually just like, this company released this item, it cost this much, and here's who made it. I try to shout out the artist whenever I can. So that grew a pretty decent following for what it is, particularly on Twitter, and just coming up in the blogging kind of sphere around the same time as John Squires, who is the editor-in-chief of Bloody Disgusting. He used to run a blog called Freddy in Space that I was a big fan of. We've been like, internet friends for I don't even know now, over a decade. So I pitched him an article kind of out of the blue, spur of the moment. Like, I had a thing written. And again, like I said, I don't really do a lot of long form stuff on Broke Horror Fan. I used to do like Blu-ray reviews, but pretty sporadically. So I had this article I pitched to John. He ended up running it. And I got like such a charge out of it. It was like, knowing that people, again, it was like I said earlier about writing for others, so like knowing there was a captive audience there that was like reading it and like commenting on it, even though comments can be questionable.
Absolutely.
But just getting that like immediate feedback was very inspiring, energizing. So I just kept pitching John more and more articles. I have a weekly column there called Killer Collectibles, which is kind of like I kind of call it like a Reader's Digest version of Broke Horror Fan. It's basically the 5 coolest collectibles that were announced that week. It publishes every Friday.
I'm very familiar. I keep up with it. And so does Luke.
Thank you. And then I also do a lot of Blu-ray and 4K reviews for them, as well as sporadic other content, some interviews, stuff like that. They've been super welcoming and open, and as I've written more for them, my role with them has kind of gotten bigger. And basically around the same time that I started pitching to them is around the same time they relaunched Screambox, and they were looking for someone to do publicity. And John had known that I did PR because he received a bunch of press releases from me in the past. I did for a lot of indie films, my own stuff, and then branched out from there. And some companies, I could do Fright Rags publicity as well. So he recommended me. I started at Screambox in the PR capacity. And again, at the same time, it all just kind of happened, got lucky, right place, right time, because they were also looking for someone to do their socials. and they're like, we know this stuff. We want, like kind of what you're similar to what you're saying to other streaming services, where it's like we don't want to just be a faceless entity who answers with like customer service. We want someone who is like representing the brand, who's going to get there, like, shake hands, kiss babies, whatever. Like, someone who can be personalized, and it's not, it's not a 9 to 5 shift. Not to say I'm working 24/7, but whenever someone is responding to you, it's me. It's not, a team of people who, maybe they weren't paying attention to your last interaction. You have to repeat yourself 10 times before you get to the point. Like it's always the same person, which I think helps a lot, that consistency. So yeah, I mean, I just got lucky. I mean, I worked hard to get where I am, but I really just lucked out in terms of everything coming together all at once. And now I get to do Screambox and Bloody Disgusting full time.
And that's the dream. I mean, like, that's, I think, what anybody who, at least from our perspective, just being a year into this, it's one of those, like, we'd love to at some point be able to do this full time and just be able to talk horror and talk like film and everything in general. And I mean, I think something we're going to dive into here shortly is the fact that I know you also aspire to be a filmmaker. You've made your own films, like you said, and everything. So, that's also a dream for us as well. So, I mean, like, I think like that's been something very eye-opening. For Luke and I, we've had plenty of conversations since we started interacting with folks like you, and then kind of interacting with many other outlets and things like that. It's just kind of hearing a similar thing of like, yeah, I worked my ass off. It was a lot of late nights and just, crunching things and being that guy who's gonna, make this video about such and such topic and just stay up late doing it and just kept going. And then suddenly, people started taking notice. And, I think that's just one of the more rewarding things about this. Cause it's like, yeah, it's, similar to articles. It's like, yeah, we get comments sometimes that are just a little disparaging and you're just kind of like, well, gotta let it roll off, and you gotta keep going and keep letting the good ones energize you and just deflect the bad ones. But yeah, I mean, like, it's been something of a privilege to just be able to, talk to people like you who've been able to share their story like that. Because, again, that's where I think anybody who, not only in the horror space but the film space, they want to end up doing something with what they're passionate about. And
Yeah.
ultimately that's the goal. And I think it's great that you've gotten to kind of, do that. Like, you're now just working for, the stuff you love. With that though, is there ever any time where it gets a little overwhelming? Do you ever feel like, I mean, I gotta say with the Terrifier 3 trailer and everything, like, that had to have been insane. Can we dive into that a little bit? Like, how did that all like kind of come about? And then obviously the poster had leaked and stuff. Like, how was all that?
Well, these two questions kind of go hand in hand, because in terms of overwhelmed, every October, well, it starts earlier and earlier every year. Now by like September, I was like, oh my God, is it November yet? I mean, I love it. Don't get me wrong. I have, I don't know. It's kind of like one of those things. Like they say, when you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. But it's also like, if you do what you love, you're working every waking moment of your life. Because like, I don't know, my hobbies and my passions and my interests and my job are all kind of intertwined in one. So it is, for many years I did it all for free. So the fact that I get paid for it now, like, I'll never complain about it. But it is, I mean, a lot. It does get overwhelming from time to time. Terrifier 3 was insane. Well, Terrifier 2 was insane. It overperformed all of our expectations, did wild theatrical, got a whole bunch of new subscribers for Screambox. People who otherwise would have never heard of us suddenly knew what Screambox was, which was incredible. And then obviously the publicity it got. I mean, you can't buy that, getting mentioned on like Howard Stern and like I don't know, one of those morning talk shows, and like people passing out, people throwing up. Like you literally couldn't buy better publicity than that. It was all organic, genuine word of mouth. So that was just incredible. And obviously we really wanted Terrifier 3. Damien spoke to other distributors about it, which we totally understood. We invited him to do so. But ultimately he came back and agreed that Screambox and Cineverse and Bloody Disgusting was the right home for him, because we were going to do the same thing we did for Terrifier 2. We were going to release it unrated, exactly how he wants it. You know, he has final cut. We just distribute it. He has complete creative control. And that was a big thing for him.
Oh,
Be-
absolutely. I can
because,
imagine.
yeah, needless to say, a lot of, you know, other places wanted to make sure they get an R rating so they can get in more theaters, they can do more advertising, which, like, again, would have been awesome for him. He deserves to have a wide, you know, full, you know, P&A marketed film, but that's not Terrifier. Like, what's the point? I shouldn't say what's the point, but a Terrifier, particularly Terrifier 2, an R-rated cut would be like, I don't know, it just wouldn't feel right, and it would be like, and then you'd wait whatever 2 months or however long it takes to get to streaming or disc or whatever to see like the real movie. So we're just cutting out the middleman there, and going full uncut. And you'll be getting that Terrifier 3 in October 2024. Yeah, we got a lot of like, I don't know, pushback, or like, not even pushback's not the right word, just like ignorant comments about people, like, because Terrifier 2 we re-released on November 1st, and that's where the trailer or the teaser for Terrifier 3 came out, and the poster. But a lot of people were like, "Oh, why would you release a Halloween movie the day after Halloween?" But like, if you try to book a horror movie in October, if you're not a major studio, it's very difficult to do so.
Oh, I can imagine.
And like, I don't know, people think it's a lot easier than it is, I guess. But it worked out because, which people didn't know at the time when we first announced the date, Terrifier 3 is a Christmas movie, so it was kind of like bridging the gap between Halloween and Christmas, and we're kind of doing a similar thing with Terrifier 3 next year. It's going to come out in theaters before Halloween, but then it will hopefully be streaming in time for Christmas. Don't quote me on that, but
I would hope so, man. I really would hope so. We had the same thought for Thanksgiving recently. Like, I mean, Luke had said it, I think, in our review or our spoiler talk, where he's just like, I hope this is at least on streaming by the time Christmas rolls around. And hey,
yeah, and they did it, right?
yep, yesterday was the day. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited to have it. So yeah, that's wonderful to hear. I mean, like, seriously, that is insane that it's like this franchise has just kind of become this huge, I mean, right up there with the big boys, right up there with Freddie, Jason, and Michael. I mean, Luke, I'm sure you got a little bit to say on that for sure too, because I know you were kind of the proponent before I was in saying that Art the Clown was one of the big guys.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, Dylan and I have talked about it on the channel several times, where it seems like it's so hard to break through in terms of getting that next icon, that horror icon that could be in talks to be like on that Mount Rushmore, so to speak. And, you know, Art the Clown, I mean, I don't have to tell you, the fan base for the Terrifier property is just so rabid. It's like anything that is posted, we've seen it because we've done videos on it, of just, you know, everyone shows up for that. So I can't imagine, especially, you know, being on social media and having to handle that property that really is a hot property that I don't think anyone could have expected, just how popular it has become. I can see that easily being such a daunting task, because once something is posted, even a teaser, even a 1-minute teaser, I think there's so many fans show up for it. And there was, because we went and saw the re-release of Terrifier 2, and then as soon as that hit, it was just such a talking point, because I think it was released, I think, what was it, that following Monday, was it, I believe, on social media. And after that, there was just so many conversations. But, you know, I think Art the Clown is easily in that conversation of becoming that next horror icon, if he's not already there.
Yeah, it's wild that you said nobody saw it coming, and that includes us. We knew it had the fan base. We knew it had a fan base already established, and it was very passionate. But yeah, the original theatrical release, just we kept extending it because people kept coming, people kept going, and like I said, word of mouth spread. And then yeah, Dylan mentioned that the poster leaked before it was supposed to be a surprise when you got to the theater that was Christmas themed. But we didn't. We were okay. It was organic. Somebody at a theater got one and posted it on, I forget, Reddit or something, and it just spread like wildfire. But like, it's also cool that the fans care enough to share something like that. And similarly with the trailer, there was, I mean, 3 dozen different terrible cell phone quality versions of that, the night it screened. And we held off for, like you said, I forget, it was like 5 days or something before we posted the official version on social media, just to kind of let it, simmer and, let people be excited and talk about it. I will say, speaking of the social media being overwhelming from time to time, there was, not my department, I don't know exactly what happened, but every theater that played Terrifier 2 was supposed to have those Terrifier 3 posters, and they didn't, or some did and didn't put them out, or they just put them like
Ooh.
on a table. So we did have a lot of angry people about that, and I don't blame them. I mean, we were told
Oh yeah.
they should have them, and some people didn't. So that's, kind of a live and learn moment. In the future, if nothing else, our wording will be different, that, select theaters will have them. But the theatrical stuff has been exciting for us, because we are a streaming service, but we aren't only a streaming service. You know what I mean? We still have some theatrical movies. We still do physical media for titles that it makes sense. So it's kind of exciting to kind of dabble in these other areas. We just had Onyx the Fortuitous and the Talisman of Souls. That was our most recent theatrical release. And again, performed above what we expected. It wasn't quite Terrifier 2 numbers, but it was really good. Again, that kind of had an established fan base. So we're hoping to do more of that in 2024.
Yeah, I had told you, we tried to go see, I know you guys had two big ones. It was it was Shaky Shivers
Mm-hmm.
and Onyx that came out. We tried to go see Shaky Shivers, and like for some reason just the theaters closest to us, they didn't have anything listed. So I was just like, okay, well, when Onyx come in, thankfully you were able to supply us a screener when the time came. When Onyx the Fortuitous came out, I was just like, okay, I'm gonna make sure I'm on top of this. I'll make sure I got all the time in the world to get to it. And luckily it, like, just the strangest thing, it was around us, so I got to go see it. And I remember looking at tickets the day before, and I was just like, okay, I can hold off, because I think I had a Cinemark rewards like ticket about to roll over, so I'm like, let's just do that. And then I remember looking the next day, and I sent this screenshot to Luke, and just seeing the theater was like there were maybe 5 seats left, and I was just like, what is going on? Like, I didn't know like that many people were, unless you're like a big horror fan, like we're into that. And I think like the thing that you guys need to credit yourselves with, and I think it stems perfectly with you running the social media and doing the publicity, is it's like, it seems like Screambox and a company like that, it's run by horror fans. It's run by people who understand that, yeah, we want physical media. We want, just because it's going to be on the streaming service doesn't mean that it can't have a, theatrical release. And I think that that's something that you guys really need to understand, that you're doing better than a lot of these bigger streaming services. Like, how many people badger Netflix all the time where it's like, oh, I want a Blu-ray or a 4K for Midnight Mass. I want Fall of the House of Usher, all that Mike Flanagan stuff. They never listen. They hardly ever put stuff out. And it's like, you guys are like, no, we're going to have a 4K, or not a 4K. We're going to have a Blu-ray. We're going to have, it on streaming, and, we're going to put it in the theaters. It's like, to have a smaller company be able to do that, I mean, it's just, it's absolutely mind-blowing. And I think that's what's really going to propel the company and the service, is the fact that they have minds like you behind the scenes, who I'm sure are pushing for stuff like that. Because yeah, it's like, I haven't gotten Onyx yet, but right after Christmas, that's what I'm doing. Once all the gifts are settled and everything, and I got some spending cash again, that's one of the first things I'm picking up for sure.
Well, thank you. First of all of that is very kind of you to say. But yes, no, you're absolutely right. We are run by horror fans. I mean, and I know, like, anyone, it's kind of cliche to say, like, by fans, for fans, by fans, whatever. But we truly are. I mean, Cineverse is our parent company, but they are and have been an established film distributor and studio. Like, they're run by film fans, and then the Screambox side of things is run by the team who runs Bloody Disgusting. So it's not like we're just, hired suits who are doing this for a gig. It's like we live and breathe this kind of thing. And yeah, we did push for physical media, because that's something that, it's blurred right now because my room's a mess, but like behind me, these are all Blu-rays on that shelf. So it's yeah, it's important to us to kind of make sure that the fans are accounted for. We can't release every single one of our titles in theaters or every single one on Blu-ray. That's just, I mean, unfortunately, it's not feasible. But when we do Blu-rays, we try to, go all out. Like you're saying, Onyx has 3 different commentary tracks and like a bunch of other
That's
stuff on it.
amazing. I mean, you never
Um,
see that stuff anymore.
yeah,
And it's
big props to Andrew Bowser, who is Onyx, for supplying a lot of that. He went all out to help us go all out.
oh, absolutely. And that goes into your background here. I'm going to let Luke take this away because he's got some beef with you, in particular about broke horror fans. So Luke, go ahead and take that away there, man. I'm going to let you take that one.
Okay, well, so Dylan and I had this is kind of our second iteration of the channel. We had initially started Splattercast during pandemic when everything had shut down. Prior to that, we had just had like a general podcast of movies that we were almost at the theater weekly, and it just got to be too much. So we decided to narrow it down and focus on horror specifically. So, we're meeting every so often to do a podcast, and I wasn't too much of a Twitter person at all. But there wasn't much to do when you're in lockdown, so I ended up perusing Twitter, and I stumbled upon Broke Horror Fan, and I'll tell you, I lost so much money on all the deals. It was something that I would check just multiple times in a day, and I think honestly, probably the biggest thing I got was the big collection for the Universal Monsters.
I'm so jealous still to this day that you got caught wind of that. I didn't. So
and I told him about it, so he cannot gripe about it.
Nope, I waited. I didn't jump on
you should just be refreshing Broke Horror Fans feed every
I
10
tell you,
minutes.
there's so much good stuff on there. But honestly, for that is still something I continuously check. I absolutely love the VHS releases with Witter Entertainment. I think those are just absolutely beautiful. The Terrifier stuff just looks great, and the Mandy thing is just a must-have. Was that something that you were looking, saying there are so many great deals out here, and there was no central location for it, so it was something you just thought, I have to do this for the horror community. I have to open up Broke Horror Fan and then just have this central location where everyone can go for the deals. Because I got to be honest, Broke Horror Fan is always my go-to in terms of, I check it at least twice daily to make sure I'm not missing anything. So is that something like you growing up and, in the social media culture, just being on the internet, you were like, I wish I just had a place to go for all the horror deals?
Yeah, it was less about what I think other people need and more like what I wanted to have, what I wish somebody else had done for me to take the legwork out. Yeah, so what you're referring to, also I do on Twitter, I didn't mention, I'll post daily whatever, mostly horror, but sometimes like genre adjacent stuff. Whatever's on sale on Amazon, it's usually Amazon, like cheap Blu-rays or whatever. And Broke Horror Fan is not a money-making venture by any means, but I do make affiliate money off Amazon sales, and that does go back into keeping the site up and running. So it's greatly appreciated that you do that, and I'm glad I can provide some sort of service, because it's just, there's too much out there to keep track of, not just in terms of stuff on sale, but just like new releases every week. There's 2 different companies have cool new shirts I want, then somebody released a record, then somebody released a toy, and then somebody released a print, and it's just like I wanted a place to go for people to go where they can see, and then it's like categorized by item. So it's like, I want to see all the vinyl that's been released in the last month or whatever, and you can kind of go category by category if you're looking for something in particular.
Yeah, and I think that's just so important to, just us as like a community, in the sense of just like, again, like you said, not just horror, but filmmaking in general, merchandising and memorabilia. It's like there's something about filmmakers and screenwriters and people who are into this stuff who's just like, we get that bug where it's like, I got to own a piece of this. And it's like, I think that's why, again, physical media becomes so important. And honestly, it was looking pretty dark there for a while, but I think we're on the cusp of a big turnaround here, where I think like certain companies and stuff are starting to realize how rabid people are for physical media, and just how streaming is kind of becoming almost like the snake that's eating its own tail. And like, as a avid physical media collector, it's like, how do you feel about all that? Is that something that's like, something you keep up with, or is it more just you go with the flow and you're kind of just, if Best Buy and Target decide to stop selling, then I have my boutiques and I have my other things that I'm going to go to. Because obviously, I think for any of us, if we have a standard, a Blu-ray, like I know if I have a standard, like even the most recent example was Bone Tomahawk, was just like, that's something that I had just the regular Blu-ray of, but Walmart, they somehow got the steel book, and I used to be really into it, but I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go pick up the steel book because it's just like, it's beautiful. I love that movie and I love that. So how do you feel about just like where physical media is kind of headed with this almost like huge downturn and now kind of already hitting a resurgence?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited that it seems to be coming back. I think Hulu or Disney releasing Prey was like a big moment this year.
Oh, absolutely.
And that was very much like fan driven and then supported by the director through social media. Um, you earlier you referenced Flanagan's stuff on Netflix, which I would love to have. He did some stuff on like DVD and Blu-ray, some of the
Hmm.
Haunting series, I think. Um, but like it's crazy because he's said that like he went to Netflix and was like, people want this, I'll do it, whatever, I'll help, put commentaries or extras or whatever, extended cuts. And Netflix was like, no, like that's just not part of their business model. And it's like, I mean, I don't get it because like they've done it for, if they never did it for any of their releases ever, it'd be like, okay, that's one
Yeah, that would
thing.
make sense.
But like they've done it for, like only the first couple seasons of Stranger Things and then nothing after that. So it's like a weird, I don't know. Um, it's frustrating from a collector, from a fan standpoint, because like I don't know, like you said, there's something about having the thing in front of you. Even again, work for a streaming service, but like I love the having the case. I know if whatever my internet goes out or
Yep.
it's right there, and I know it will always be there. That's the scariest part now is streamers removing their own content. It's I I don't understand. I guess there's some business logic to it, but like it just I don't know, to me makes you look bad, makes your
Yeah.
service look bad. It's like what am I paying for if not the access to this material that I was promised?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I working Luke and I, actually, our backstory too, we worked at video stores, like secondhand video shops for a while there. And one of the perks that you get from working in one of those places is like people would trade in Blu-rays, and unfortunately we'd have people who'd go out and steal the stuff, and then they'd sell it, but you can't call them out on it, even though you know damn well it's like, why do you have 6 copies of this movie that came out today? Like, that's so weird. But one of the things is we can't guarantee the digital codes. So we, just nature of the beast, now have these voodoo accounts with like, 600 to, I think, Luke, you have like what, like 1,500 movies on yours?
Yeah, it's I think I might be in 1600 now. I'm not sure.
Look at you. But yeah, no, it's like we've got like these ridiculous things. And the fact is, like, we don't own those. Like, that just is crazy to me that Voodoo could shut down tomorrow, and all those movies we've acquired, legally or illegally, they're just gone. And it's just like, that just blows my mind. So it's like the fact that, again, to have it in person and everything, and to have a Screambox and Cineverse being so about that too, it's wonderful to, again, to have company that is so forefront thinking, like just forward thinking, I guess what I'm trying to say about that is to say, like, yeah, they want a physical copy. Because you're right, I experienced that this week. My internet went out because we got 6 inches of snow randomly, and people forgot how to drive, so I was no internet for 2 days, so I was relying on Blu-rays to get me through. But yeah, it's like, I think that it's one of those things that it's great to see more people appreciating it. And I think that you're right, one of the big points of like why I think it's been such a rabid resurgence is because of streaming services just removing shows, removing movies. Like, again, you're right, there must be some business strategy to it, but I don't get it. And I guess to kind of segue from that, and I'd love to sit here and talk about collectibles and physical media with you all day long, but we got to talk about something that you had just dropped recently here, just within the last week, which is your short film, which is why we're here, which is Reverberance. And we put up a review of that just on our social for now, but I'm gonna get a short here once we get through our December to Dismember stuff out. I want to get a little video going for it because I was really impressed by it. I mean, like, you know, I'm not just sitting here pulling your chain just because it's like, you know, we're huge fans and all that, but like I gotta say that was one of those things where I looked at it and I said 3 minutes. Okay, this is interesting because I know a lot of people look for the short term, like the short form media nowadays where everybody wants that. But, you know, for me, it's kind of like, you know, 3 minutes just seems like it's just hard as someone who also writes and wants to direct just to conceptualize it like we're gonna impact somebody in just that short spent length of time. But I was honestly pretty surprised just by not only the effects in the film, but just the what you guys did with sound and everything. I was just sitting there watching this, and I'm just like, holy crap, that actually works really well. Like you know, I was pretty impressed. So I got to ask, like, where does that idea spawn from? You know, where did the idea of having this kind of sound demon, you know, and I don't want to get too deep into spoilers, but where does that spawn from? Who came up with it? I know that you co-directed it and co-wrote it, so who came up with that first?
So yeah, I co-wrote this one with TJ Frizzy, who's one of my best friends. I've made like, I don't know, 10 shorts or so since I think my first one came out in 2014. So like an average of one a year, give or take. Um, and TJ has worked on a bunch of them behind the scenes. We co-wrote a couple of them together, and he's acted in a couple. And he expressed interest in directing. So we were trying to find something that made sense. He came to me with the original idea. That was him. It was originally a little more elaborate and I think it had like one line of dialogue. And I was like, why don't we just try to do no dialogue if we can? Because it was just like I think she like spoke kind of to herself, which is kind of pet peeve of mine. Characters in movies, like just expository kind of dialogue. So yeah, he came up with the story. Then we wrote the script together, like physically sat down together and went kind of line by line to figure it out. And then it was ultimately decided that it would be best for us to co-direct, since it was his first time. And yeah, it was very proud of how it came out. The idea to kind of make it, we knew sound design was going to be very important, but the idea to kind of do it ASMR style sound was very last minute, like right before we started shooting, which didn't impact the production that much, just post production. But I'm very happy that that came to fruition because I think if you listen to it with like a good pair of headphones, or if you see it when it played on the festival circuit in a theater with like a nice sound system, it really made a difference. And to your point about the length, that's very much my preference, I guess I'd say. I've like I said, I've made like 10 shorts. None of them have been over 10 minutes. I find both, you know, anecdotally and from like personal experience, if you send someone a link to something that's like over 10 minutes, it's like a big commitment. Even if it's something I want to see, if it's something like a filmmaker who I like or like a friend of mine, they'll send me a link and I will have every intention of watching it when I have the time, but oftentimes it'll just kind of languish in an open tab somewhere. But if it's under 10, even better if it's 5 or less, I can be like, oh, I can watch this while I can just take a quick break and watch this right now. And also on the festival circuit, it's a lot easier to program shorts that, take up less time, because then you can fit in more shorts in like an hour-long block or whatever you have. So yeah, that's kind of how Reverberance came to be. It played a bunch of cool places last year, and then we were waiting to find some cool artwork, got some cool art made, and finally put it online like a week ago.
Yeah, no, and I was really impressed by it. Luke, we haven't actually spoken too much about it because we've just been entrenched in our holiday horror stuff we've been trying to get out on the channel. So I'm gonna give you the stage here, man. Like, I want to hear your thoughts and just also any questions you have about the short.
Oh, I thought it was really intriguing, like being able to use that ASMR style. And us covering so many different horror properties. I think we already talked about the Outwaters, which I feel is such a different type of film, as well as something like a Skinamarink, where those
Mhm.
are just really different in terms of style. I think both those directors were trying to bring something new to the horror space, and seeing for Reverberance, I also got that feeling where it's something off the beaten path. It's not something that is, academic, that an equation that we've seen before. And so for me, from the very opening, it really had me intrigued just with the emphasis on sound. And that was one of my questions was, we with this, the centerpieces for me were, obviously more so about the sound. So, you have things like wind chimes and the rustling of leaves and birds chirping. Now, when you're going into that collaborative effort like that, is that something where we have the concept, let's sit down and find those sounds that we can really emphasize, or did the story kind of draw itself out in terms of, narratively what we're going to see on screen, and then what can we add in to really put an emphasis on that sound?
No, it was very much figuring it out from the beginning. It's funny. We uh, the original when TJ's original concept, it started inside, and I think the first sound you heard, and there weren't wind chimes in it. The first sound you heard was like a coffee machine or something like that. And I was just like pragmatically, like if we just start outside and then only have one thing inside, it's going to make the shoot a lot easier. Um, so we eventually landed on the wind chimes, and like even that was like just like a weird example about co-directing. Like I pushed for the wind chimes, and he like I don't know wasn't into it for whatever reason. And then found these bamboo ones, and like that's what made him excited about it, as opposed to like regular metal wind chimes. And it does give it a different feel. Like I like the bamboo. Like it ended up working out for the best. But it's just like a weird example. So yeah, that and then the bird feeder were like the two things that I was like, I think those are going to be really cool sounds that we can emphasize. Um, the then there's bird chirping, which is like stock sound effect with some effects put on it of a crow, so it kind of already sounds creepy. And then the leaves came naturally with the shoot. We had just had our sound guy like literally just like kind of walk around in the leaves with his boom mic. And then Kevin Hagen, who's our sound guy, was also our sound mixer. He's the one who made it sound so good. Have to give him a shout out because he really worked with me in the edit. I edited the film, and then he worked with me on the sound design to kind of get it exactly where we wanted it. There's a shot at the end where kind of all the sounds are kind of crescendoing together. That I'm really happy with how it turned out. Also, Brian Luttrell composed the score. That was the other thing that kind of brought everything together. It's like when I saw it, particularly this one, because there's no dialogue. When I edited it together, I was like, well, I don't know if this works because like I didn't have the like. I hope it does. Like, but will it work when we have the sound design? Will people care that ASMR like about ASMR? I feel like that was like a hot button thing like 3 years ago. Will they like care about it still when we finally release this? Thankfully, they seem to have. And yeah, Brian did a really cool score that's very like it's like synth based, but not like 80s synth. It's very like ambient, like almost like meditation music kind of thing. I sent him some sample stuff, and he just knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, I want to touch on something real quick before I pass it back to Luke here. But the what drew me in when listening to it for the first time. Now I have like a pretty nice pair of like JBL earbuds, and it's like I try to listen to stuff like you guys. I'm also one of those. I want nice, good sound for any film. I think like especially making shorts, and we're still in post, the very tail end of post on our short film for the actual extended cut we're going to release here soon. And that's been a huge undertaking. Is the sound itself is like I've never gone this deep into sound design, and it's the bird seed for me that really I think it's almost like this. I wanted to put this in my written review, but I'm gonna have to save it for the actual like video because like it would just be too long of a description. But it's like I like it almost feels like you're like Alice in Wonderland going down the rabbit hole in a sense because like I don't know why, but when you guys like start tilting that bird seed in there, it was just one of those things where I just felt like the tone of the film, like the almost the ambience and the horror kind of start to slide down, and I was just like, I don't know why this is creepy. I don't know why. I don't know why I'm getting a little tense, and it might be the crow, it might be that, but and then I'll pass it off to Luke here, but I want to circle back because I think what adds to that is your creature here, and obviously being a huge creature fan, I'm gonna have to touch on it. But Luke, I'll throw it back to you before I dive too deep into that.
I get that sense of tension that Dylan was talking about as well, because you're just waiting for something to happen, but you're not expecting, obviously, what we do dive into. You said that the original script was a little more elaborate, and looking at the short just being just over 3 minutes, it's just this instance of a horrific situation where it doesn't overly explain everything. And sometimes I think there are films out there that are great, but sometimes there is this need to overly explain everything, and sometimes that does take the terror out of it. Now, is this just an instance of I didn't know if there was a bigger idea at play here, or is this just a small instance of terror to kind of give horror fans, or is this something you would want to expand upon later down the road?
I have no intention personally of expanding on it, but if the opportunity presented itself, I would love to. I would love to play more with the sound. First of all, I meant to say before, thank you for the written piece. That was nice. And I do like I mentioned, I love that birdseed thing. It almost reminds me of like a rain stick, but I never really thought about how it kind of I don't know, coincides with the rise of tension. That's super interesting. But yeah, TJ has a bigger idea for it. Had a bigger idea for it. It involved involving like the creature coming from like another dimension or something like that. Which I mean, I think could be cool if you had a feature length to explore. But again, if you keep it short and simple, and I think the ambiguity kind of helps it in the short form. So I'm happy with where I landed on that. But again, I mean, if the opportunity presents itself, I would be first in line to jump at doing more.
Yeah, I really I like the short and sweetness of this, because again, it's like for me, I tend to get a little bit like, okay, how much, like what kind of a film am I going to get here when it comes to length and things like that. And I think one of the things that it's starting to work for me is like the amount of TikTok like horror and like shorts and stuff, and how people are able to kind of just present these little brief ideas in about a minute. And I think that's a fun challenge. And I think that like the fact that you've kind of taken that on through your short film career here is like just your mantra, in a sense of just saying, like I want to, give you something that's consumable, give you something that it's like you're not going to be intimidated by the runtime. Because it's like I think that that's something that Luke and I have even kind of run into when we're trying to make these shorts. Like Sycophant was our first real, we've got a success. We won an award for it. We actually got it done. We didn't even expect to get that far. But before, we had so many dead stops and starts, and it's because we're trying to make these things that are 15, 20 pages, and we're not really thinking about like, well, this is going to be like 20 minutes. And it's like, that's a lot to shoot. And I mean, I can only imagine how much it was here, especially because I got to say, one of the things that impresses me and where I'm getting at this is, again, the costume, the creature effect. Like, tell me a little bit about that. Like, what was that? How did you guys come to land on that design? Was that just something that, like, whoever did your prosthetics, did they have that in mind, or was that a specific vision that maybe like TJ or you had?
That was TJ's concept for the look. Then we worked with the artist who's Jordan Pacheco, who's a fantastic filmmaker in his own right. He's got features under his belt, but came up as a special effects artist and we've worked on a ton of projects together. We worked together to kind of work on figure out a color palette, because we want it to look like otherworldly, but also have colors that kind of complemented one another. So the creature's like this gray blue, and he like has vibrant blue, like goo, for lack of a better, we just
Yeah.
call goo, and purple goo. So it's like vaguely human, but not quite. You know what I mean? And yeah, Jordan's work is incredible. I we kind of came up on the indie local, like New England independent film community together, working on stuff. And I mentioned I made one short, and I was talking about like concepts for a next one, and I threw out this idea called Trouser Snake, which is about a killer penis.
Love it.
And like a week later, he texts me a dick pic, but it's like a a prosthetic phallus piece. He's like a sculpt, a mold of it. And I was like, hey, he's like, do you think this would work? I was like, oh, I guess I'm really making this short. Like,
there you go.
he's just like that kind of dude. He's a great guy, very talented. And yeah, he killed it on that creature. Also, Brian Bouye, who's playing the creature, also he is also a filmmaker more than an actor, but really got like into playing the creature, which was awesome, really cool to see. And at one of the festivals we played, Jordan won an award for the special effects. So yeah, we're super stoked on that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that was one of the things that impressed me is just again, it's like, and I think like there's a part of me that has to step back and think, I mean, you've got a number of shorts under your belt, and you have had this ability to connect with so many people and meet so many people. So I'm like, and that's just kind of how this stuff really works at the end of the day when it comes to independent filmmaking. It's meeting other filmmakers, meeting other people, shaking hands, and just saying, hey, I will help you if you help me. And I think that there's something so pure about that. And it's some. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. No, that's how every one of my shorts have been made. Very few people, if any, get paid. But I'll always return the favor. I used to edit full time. Now I dabble. But so if any of my friends, if they don't need an extra hand on set, I'll be like, I'll edit your next short or whatever.
Mhm.
Kind of like you said, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. Because it is a community. But also it's like a cool. Everyone at the end of the day, whether you're the director or you're a PA, at the end of the day, you have this thing that you helped put together that kind of marks this moment in time for everyone involved that you can share and be like, yeah, I helped make this thing happen. And all because all of my shorts are so short, they're all 1 or 2 day shoots, so it's low commitment for crew. If they're not getting paid, it's like I'll feed you well, and you get to hang out and like have a good time. It's low stress environment. We're all friendly, we all have a good time, and at the end of a day or two, we're gonna have a cool short.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the best things about, I mean, short filmmaking, other than us being like, hey, I think Sycophant's going to be one weekend, and then it turns into 3 weeks of random days in between. So just like you live and you learn, and I think that that's just one of the beauties of it. But I know we're kind of coming down to the end of the wire here with time. But Luke, I'm going to pass it off to you. What else do you have for Alex there?
So I did get a chance to check out some of your other short films, and
No, thank you.
It was my
Well,
pleasure.
it's what you think of them first, I guess. But I appreciate your time either way, even if you hated them.
No, I think they were all really well done. I think honestly, really what intrigued me with Reverberance here, obviously we're tackling the idea of sound a little more, kind of putting an emphasis on that. Trouser Snake, I think you mixed, horror and comedy, which I have a volatile relationship with. I think you did it really well.
He's a tough critic.
Thank you.
In terms of bringing something unique and different, and I did get to see the monster, which I think you ended. It's a lot of fun. So definitely, whoever's watching hasn't seen that, definitely check it out. Be Us, I feel like you really honed in on performance wise with just almost a real static shot and kind of doing the close-ups and everything like that, and just the subject matter you're tackling. And then something like The Nurturing, I feel you're really building a lot of tension with looking under the bed and that aspect of it. When you're doing these short films, is it, do you have the idea of because when Dylan and I did it, I always look at what we've done in terms of tools in your tool belt, where once you've completed something, you're like, well, now I know it for next time. Do you look at it when you're building these short films before you even decide what to do next? I want to work on building tension, or from a performance perspective, I want to tackle these subjects. So now let me start thinking of one of these ideas that I've had and kind of build it around that. Or is it just kind of whatever intrigues you next is what you tackle, and then it's just a byproduct in terms of building that tension or using comedy?
More so the latter, but a little bit of both. I My first few things that I made were definitely horror comedy. My first short is called "The Horrors of Autocorrect," which it's not on YouTube, but it got picked up for distribution by Crypt TV, which was co-owned by Eli Roth. I don't know if he still does, but he did at the time. So that was big for me. That was like my first short out of the gate, and like the director of Cabin Fever and Hostel liked it, so like that was cool. Um, and then Trouser Snake, and then I kind of wanted to get away from the comedic stuff because it is easier, might not be the right word for it, but I don't know. If you're funny, you can kind of get away with more, even if like maybe you're filmmaking, whether it's budgetary or just gear, whatever. Like you can get away with a little bit more with being a little rougher around the edges, as long as you can make people laugh. Um, but my personal viewing habits are more, kind of straight down the line, like horror, capital H horror. Without the comedic elements. So I kind of made a conscious effort to focus a little bit more on that. You mentioned Be Us. That one was kind of designed to. So that's TJ, my co-writer on Reverberance, who's starring in that. He was interested in exploring acting more. So we came up with that as almost like kind of to serve as a reel for him to kind of show his acting abilities, but also a challenge for me to like, can I direct something where it's just one guy sitting in a room and still make it interesting? So that was kind of like a fun little side experiment. And The Nurturing is my favorite short of mine so far. It's the closest I've come to what was on this page being what turned out to be on the screen. There's always little divergences. But that one was very much like, I want to make something that's like creepy and suspenseful and tense, because those are the kind of movies that I enjoy. Stuff like, like The Strangers. I mentioned before, the original Halloween is like my favorite movie, and obviously through modern eyes, it's maybe not as scary as it was in 1978, but there's still moments of suspense and tension that I think are, sustained very well. So I'd love to do a little bit more of that. Again, Reverberance, because it was co-directed, was kind of like almost like a sidebar. But again, that's almost in the sci-fi realm, but still more horror than comedy, of course. And I say all that, but I've since shot one more short that's in post-production called Pocket Money, which is not horror at all. It's like a heist movie that has a comedic twist. Which I have no idea what I'm going to do with because I'm so used to just promoting horror stuff. But it's fun to just kind of flex different muscles. And even if I don't set out to do something in particular, I certainly take away something from every short I make. And I think I become, whether it shows on screen or not, a better director for the next project. I'm a little bit more prepared, a little bit more maybe flexible, dexterous, up for slightly bigger challenges each and every time. And even that goes for also working on other people's sets. Like, I'll pick up little things from friends who direct as well if I'm giving them a hand on their set. Just constantly learning, evolving, moving forward.
Awesome.
Ultimately, hopefully getting to a feature. That's my ultimate goal, but we'll see.
I love that. That's the goal for all aspiring filmmakers, is to get to the feature. And I mean, hey, I think it's safe to say that if you get there, you know where you're going to be distributing it. Hopefully the guys over at Screambox.
I have an in. I know some people, but it's got to be good. They got to believe in it too.
Absolutely. And I think if anything, looking through your short film filmography and just the work, I think that it will be very solid. It'll be very unique and very interesting. So, yeah, man, I thank you so much for coming on here and talking with us. Obviously, like, I'm sure a lot of our audience is already either knows Broke Horror Fan or at least knows Screambox and Bloody Disgusting by now. So, but go ahead and, feel free to let everybody know where they can find you, where they can keep up with your work, and where they can find Reverberance.
Yeah, thank you for speaking with me and giving me the opportunity to self-promote. I love that. Reverberance, you can find it on YouTube. If you search Reverberance horror short, it should come up. I always try to pick titles that haven't been used for a million other movies, so they're a little easier to find. It is hard to spell, but I think YouTube will correct it if you spell it wrong. Reverberance ASMR horror short is like the video title. You can find that, and if you find that, you can click through to the Lockbridge Productions, which is like my pseudo production company page that has not all but a bunch of my shorts. And if you want to see the Horrors of Autocorrect that I mentioned, that one's only on the Crypt TV Facebook. But if you Google Horrors of Autocorrect, it should be like the first result. For a first short, I'm very proud of that one. You can find me rambling about stuff at Alex's Legend on Twitter. That's my personal one. Then, of course, Broke Horror Fan and Screambox TV. I'm behind all three of those 24/7 pretty much. So you can find me there. Then also Broke Horror Fan and Screambox TV on Instagram. BrokeHorrorFan.com for merch needs. Bloody Disgusting hosts a bunch of stuff that I write, which is awesome. Also the best, in my opinion, best source for horror news. And Screambox.com, we have a big year coming up in 2024. If I can tease a couple things, we've got this movie called Here for Blood coming out in early 2024. I don't think it's publicly dated yet, but it played festivals last year, got a great response. It's almost like if you remade Evil Dead 2 and cast John Cena in it.
Okay. All right. I'm sold.
It's like, yeah, super splattery horror comedy with pro wrestling and heavy metal and like cult stuff and babysitter. It's a wild movie. I think people are gonna have fun with that one. Terrifier 3, of course, is our big one coming in October 2024. We have our remake of Street Trash from the director of Fried Barry. That's going to be a big one. We also have one other kind of a remake reboot of a recognizable property that we can't say the name of yet, but should be coming in later 2024 that I think people are going to be excited about. Another one, like getting the director Fried Barry to do Street Trash, we got a cool director who made a movie we enjoyed in the recent years, kind of put their own spin on a horror property that everyone's going to recognize. So very excited about that. Plus, I mean, every single month we have a bunch of originals and exclusives that maybe you haven't heard of. Maybe they're not a property that you're familiar with. But I will do my best to sell them to you on social media. I always try to come up with, it's kind of a fun little game for me to kind of come up with comps or stuff to get people excited, whether it's like, oh, it has this actor from this thing you love, or it's like I said, like the Evil Dead 2 with John Cena, like a little like kind of elevator pitch log line to get people interested in stuff that maybe they otherwise wouldn't click on. So yeah, a lot more coming down the pipeline. And you mentioned it in passing, but Broke Horror Fan also does VHS releases, modern horror movies on. Sorry, this is longer than the interview.
You're good. You're fine. I'm liking it. I'm learning stuff.
Modern horror movies on officially licensed limited edition fully functional VHS tape. I curate, produce, and crop them with my best friend James from Witter Entertainment, who produces and distributes them with me. We put out stuff like Terrifier 2, Mandy, Color Out of Space, Willy's Wonderland, Host, Psycho Gorman, Victor Crowley, just some of my favorites off the top of my head. And we hope to continue that. We're already working on some of our 2024 stuff. We just did Return to Sleepaway Camp, which I know is maybe not the most sought after Sleepaway Camp movie, but I think it'll be cool to have alongside the first three on VHS. Plus, we made a run of Camp Arawak shorts that you can get with them. Nice. So I'm very excited to show off my legs in those next summer.
Very cool, man. Yeah, no, that's a lot of great stuff. Definitely excited about the Screambox stuff. Excited about that. I think next time we have you on, I really want to dive deeper into that process of cropping and getting those things on VHS and just how that all works. Because I mean, like that just opens a whole nother door. You got too much stuff to talk about in 1 hour there, Alex. So pat yourself on the back. But all righty, I'm gonna wrap that portion up there. And cool, I'll end the recording. But yeah, man, thank you so much for